Good evening and welcome to Information Please, your Peoria Public Library on the air, and bringing you information about your library and your community. This evening I have with me Marla Brady, who is an expert on getting your kids where they need to be educationally in college and beyond, and she's doing a series of programs at Peoria Public Library, so I wanted to have her in to be able to talk about all that and entice some of you to come and take advantage of her expert knowledge. Hi.
Hi.
Well, you've been doing this great job and for months now and still have months to go on taking people through what it takes to get to that next step. What comes after high school? What do you do to, get the educational foundation, get into college or not get into college, whatever you need to do. But what is your background? What information can you bring people that they can't get elsewhere?
Okay. Well, I am a retired principal. I've been a principal at elementary, middle, and high school, and also taught some at the college level. And I retired after 31 years to chase my next dream, which was to start my own business and to work with students and adults on college and career direction. And so that's pretty much what the series has been about, navigating the road to college success.
Right, and the people rely on the library so often for that. It used to be we had the practice tests for ACT, SAT. I think that's what people think of the library as far as college prep, and they would always disappear. And of course now we have all those online, so they can't disappear. And if you have your PIN number and your library card, you can go and do those practice tests. But there is so much more to getting in and paying for it and all the rest of it. And so where do you tell people to start? They've got children and they want to, figure out where we're going after this. When should they start?
That's a great question, and one I almost always get asked when I do a presentation. And I always tell them middle school, because middle school is where your student establishes grades that start them in high school. And that track is what takes them through, and so start strong is the message. But any time in high school, freshman, sophomore, is a great time to start looking at the future. And it's not that you have to be so daily drawn to that concept as much as planning thoughtfully and having those family discussions periodically.
Right, and some of those things are like signing up for classes, which takes a lot of thought, I think, and sometimes I think parents get blindsided or taken by surprise because they haven't taken the time as their child was in 7th or 8th grade to look at what the high school is going to offer. And do you think it's changed a lot in the 31 years?
It really hasn't. I mean, there's a lot more available insofar as what schools, communities, and state are offering insofar as career readiness. But again, it's offered. So it's a matter of parents and students having to take it up and do their homework.
Go get it.
But quite honestly, when you look at the investment of an education and you look at what you spend on a car, you do your homework to buy a car. Why would you not do your homework when you look at the investment of college?
Right.
And when I say college, I'm talking college or technical school, because really and truly what all of the research is showing is that students need to be looking at the next step of education beyond high school. And that's all students. So whether it's a technical school, a community college, or a full 4-year or beyond institution, next step education is vital.
And I think many parents think their child must get a 4-year college degree to succeed in life, but that's not necessarily true. There's so many careers out there that require something different that people can do so well at and be happier.
Absolutely. And I think that's, a really important factor to remember is that satisfaction. Because so many times I get calls from young adults who have finished college, been out in the workforce a year or two, and discover they hate what they do. And they want to know what can they do. So redirecting is something that I see a lot. And by doing homework up front, you can vet out some of those options and make choices that are more effective and get to that happiness quotient more easily.
Yeah. And sometimes that I think many people would take being happy and make it, and not equating with the salary so much as just not having to go 40 hours to something you absolutely hate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you've still got a few things coming up, March 24th, April 28th, and May 19th. And on March 24th, you're going to talk about college prep and summer plans. And what will you be talking about at that session?
The kinds of things that students can do, and families actually, in preparing for college. So whether it's making visits to campuses, maybe you plan a family vacation, be it by car or air, and then rent a car. If there's a campus close by, do a drive-through. Those kinds of things are so important because they help students establish a baseline of what does a campus look like.
Right.
And I find so many times families don't even take advantage of the institutions in their backyards, sort of like a lot of the amenities that we just never find time to enjoy. So it's important to take advantage of those summer months and do those visits, even if it's just drive-through, get out, take in a game or some event that's going on, get accustomed to being on a campus.
See what it's like, right, right. And then on April 28th, you're going to talk about creating a plan for success beyond high school, which gets back to our premise of not everybody has to go to a four-year college. But what will you talk about at that one?
You know, many schools have gone to the point of including community service as part of their transcript and requirement for high school graduation. And that's because research has shown that volunteerism is a big quotient for happiness and personal growth. And so being able to look at the kinds of opportunities students can get involved in over the summer can help them vet out the kinds of things that they may enjoy learning more about, or that they know they don't ever want to do it again in their lifetime. And it goes both ways, but both pieces of information are very important for future success and happiness.
Okay. And so then on May 19th, you'll talk about college success for freshmen. And so what sort of things will you talk about there?
And we'll talk about things like how do you do course selection, and what things have you done in the past that you really enjoy, because there are always those core classes that you must take.
Yes.
But if you have some idea of the direction you want to go, you can start tinkering with those courses. Because if you think about a university as having, this many courses, and students end up taking 6 years to graduate on average because they change majors 3 to 5 times.
Yes.
Well, every time you change a major, you extend your graduation date, typically by a semester. So if you vet out all those options, be it by doing some assessments, by doing some volunteering, paying attention to your courses, you can begin to narrow that scope so that you're selecting courses within this realm rather than this realm, and decreasing the odds of a 6-year graduation. We want a 4-year on-time graduation. If you're going to spend 6 years, get an advanced degree.
Yeah, exactly. So what is your one biggest piece of advice you've got, you're talking to a high school senior, they're getting ready to go off to their freshman year. What's the one most important thing they can do other than don't party? Or was that it?
Learn the resources that are available. So many students become a casualty after the freshman year because of grades, and they lose interest, partially because of the courses that they choose, for those that they have an elective capability, and partially because they don't realize what resources are available. So if you're struggling in math, you don't have to continue to struggle. Find out if there's a math lab. Find out who's available to assist you. Is there an English lab? Somebody that can help you with your writing. So learn the resources and activate those resources. And when I say resources, I include your professors. They love it when you make an appointment for one of their office hours. They like to talk about their work. They will remember you in class. Relationship building is vital to success throughout your life. So learn the resources.
Yeah, I think many professors sit in their office hours day after day after day, particularly for younger students, and never see anyone because that's just not something, I'm away from home. I'm not going to waste my time talking to the professor.
Absolutely.
And that's a huge problem.
And it doesn't matter. It can be a class that has a cap on student numbers at 20, or a class of 500 in a large university in, you know, a freshman biology class lecture. And so it doesn't matter what the numbers are. You are an important part of the student body that sits in that seat, and they will open their door to you, but you have to ask.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think younger students, unless they've got older siblings who've done this, don't understand the whole system of the graduate assistants. Who, if you've got a class of 500 and you may have a discussion group with a graduate assistant, they're willing, probably even more willing to help because they're brand new at it and they're practicing for their next step.
Absolutely, and they're getting some additional funding support.
Yeah.
And they want to maintain that.
Yeah. They want
so
you
they're
to be
a good
successful. Yeah.
Resource, absolutely.
Some of the things you've talked about previously that have gone by, but we can share here now, is back in October you talked about college tech and trends. What are some of the highlights of that program?
One of the first things when I work with students is to ask them to think about their social image, be it their email address or their Facebook pages. Pay attention to your technology image, because colleges and universities, along with employers, hire people now to vet out their candidates or their applicants. And so you need to make sure that you have the kind of image that would be considered professional, not a partier, not a rebel rouser.
Yeah, exactly.
So you need to be aware of it. And
get rid of those drinking pictures.
Exactly.
Even if your best friend posted it and tagged you, get it down or untag yourself
Absolutely.
or something.
And you bring up a great point, and that is that you need sometimes to have those conversations with friends.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to going to college, and I can't have those postings on my Facebook page. So please refrain, otherwise, you know, I'll have to.
Well, and another good thing to do is to really learn those controls on there, how to keep things private, how to delete, how to untag, which some people know and some people don't. But my experience has been it's often, oddly enough, the young men who keep everything's public and everything's public and nothing gets untagged and nothing gets edited. And so I think parents still, it's still such a hot topic over privacy and what can parents do or not, but I don't know.
But it is really important, and when you look at the trend, because we do talk about trends.
Yes.
2 years ago, about 12% of colleges and universities employed someone to check social network image. Last year it was up to 38%, and about 24% indicated that they had a negative impact result, indicating that at least 24% denied student entrance to colleges or universities based on something that was found on a social network.
Wow.
So the trend is that it's increasing each year.
Yeah. And I know that Facebook usage is dropping amongst young people, but Twitter is picking up.
Twitter is growing rapidly.
Yeah.
Yes. So the trends of...
That's another another hot button
Instagram,
to watch for. Instagram is another one that can cause a problem. You also talked before about making college visits. What would you tell people about going on a college visit?
Well, just as before, it's never too early to start, because I think you plant those seeds and you begin to establish a baseline of comparison. So I think that's really important. It's also really important to have an even measure when it comes time to making decisions about which colleges or universities you're going to apply to or decide to go to based on your acceptance letters. It's really important to have an even balance. And so having an instrument that you can sort of score each of them apples to apples as much as possible is really important, because people tend to forget key points in the emotions of the event. So it's really
Is there a
important.
tool out there, a spreadsheet?
Well,
maybe you
there's
should
not.
make one.
I do have one that I share with my clients. But whatever key points are important to you, or contact an individual like myself who does that and can provide you with a tool that would be of assistance. Absolutely.
Check things off, yeah.
Definitely.
Do you think, and I'm asking this from personal experience, do you think it's better to take people like during the summer, take your student during the summer, during the spring break when they do the big visit days with the private, you know, with the big tour where you're going with 50 people, or do you think it's better to go individually with your student on just a normal day when classes are going on and you can be by yourself?
I think they're both important. And I say that because they both render a different outcome. When you go by yourself, you can take the time to stop and chat with random students or adults, whichever the case may be, and ask key questions. Why did you come here? Are you happy with your choice? What are you studying? Why did you what were the other schools you looked at in comparison? Because I think those help you to get a picture. On the other hand, when you go on those big tour days, you know, that's the big show. And so they're going to pull out all the stops to entice you. And those are fun too. And you can get caught up in sort of the spirit of the university or the institution. Both are important. Both serve a purpose.
Do you recommend people go to both when they get interested?
I do. And sometimes that's not possible based on distance.
Right.
But whenever possible, yes.
Yeah.
But I also would say, don't let that stop you from looking at schools that are perhaps a little further away.
Yeah, okay. All right. Another thing you talked about is building your value for college admissions. What does that mean, building your value?
Authenticity. And when I say authenticity, one of the big buzzwords with admissions is authentic candidates. You know, for a while, students sent out lots of applications to see how many acceptances, you know, it's sort of the notch. Yes, exactly. And so admissions officers, you know, got pretty savvy and decided to look at that a little differently. And so when they talk about authenticity with a candidate, they're talking about those students who have built relationships with them. So I think it's really important that when you decide that there is an institution that you're really interested in attending, that you make contact with someone in the admissions office and build a relationship with that person. Now granted, they're not the only one that's going to make the decision.
Right.
And each year criteria shifts just a little depending on what they're looking for in that next freshman class. But it's important to build those relationships. And I include that in, if a student gets denied but really has their heart set on going to a school, and I have had this happen with students I've worked with, go back to that contact. Find out what you could do to build your value for that institution. And I've had kids have great success with that.
Great, great. You also, in January, just talked about evaluating careers and choosing college majors. This is huge. There's people who were born knowing what they wanted to do, and there's people who are, you know, 30, 40 years old and still don't know what they want to do.
It's true, and very unhappy in what they do. So, as I said earlier, one of the things that's really important for students is volunteerism. And so paying attention to those kinds of things that you've done. Maybe you like them enough that you want to do something in that particular direction, or perhaps it's courses that you're taking in school that are, you know, just really right up your alley. So paying attention to those kinds of things. But there are also instruments out there like the Highlands Ability Battery that can help students identify where their natural abilities are and actually begin to bring in the target zone for what careers are really great fits.
What they'd like to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And how does one find the Highland, whatever it was?
Okay, well the Highlands Ability Battery is an instrument that is owned by the Highlands Company, and they have licensed affiliates who are trained in administrating the test or the assessment.
Is that normally given through the local high schools or
colleges? It is not. It is not,
So
because it's a pretty intensive commitment. It's a 3-hour online assessment, 2-hour feedback session, and
So then if someone's interested in doing that, how do they find out how to do it?
Well, the Highlands has a website, or people like me who use it as
Yeah.
one of my tools in working with some of my personal clients.
Ah, okay, okay. And then another thing you've talked about is making the choice, college or tech school.
Again, it's really important that you vet out some of those interests at an early point through high school, because there are so many tech schools that are out there now. And just like colleges, you need to vet out which one is a good fit for you.
Yeah.
And so whether it's a more hands-on type of a profession or something that's a little more cerebral, you know, office type, they're all very important to be able to test the waters before you get there. Because just like going to college, you don't want to invest your time and your money going down a path that's not a right fit for you,
Right.
ultimately.
Right.
So being able to sort of test the waters before you go. I'm a big advocate of career shadowing. I set them up for my students that I work with individually, but I also, when I go out and speak to students at schools for career programs, I always encourage them to think about their family network. Who's in your network that you know that you could call and say, I'm really interested in getting a job in this particular field that you are in. Could I come and spend a couple of hours on President's Day, because we're off school,
Yeah.
and see what it's like in your office or in your work environment? Many times, I would say 99.9 times out of 100, I have students who have the opportunity to career shadow that way.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that I know my experience of when I've had people job shadow me, and some of them go, oh, this is so great, and others will go, boy, I don't want to do this. So
No, and you're absolutely
what, you
right.
have to do that, you know? And,
Absolutely.
And just, it's amazing. And I think part of the problem may be, in times gone by, children always grew up at their parents' side in the local family business, helping out when they were young. It was after we got to, you know, the last 100, 150 years, when we got to factories and office buildings where children were not particularly welcome, that so many kids got disconnected from what it's like at work, what it's like to go to work and work all
Right.
day, 40 hours a week.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And important to love what you do,
Yes.
to enjoy it.
Yes.
After all, you're going to spend a lot of time doing it.
A lot of time.
I had a
lot of
student
time.
that had gone to do a career shadowing experience with a company that fits prosthetic devices. He was unsure what kind of an engineer he wanted to be, but thought he wanted to be an engineer. So set him up in a career shadowing experience with a gentleman that fits prosthetic devices. And there's a whole background there that was leading me to this sort of avenue. But that evening I got a text message. That was awesome, going back again tomorrow. It was just, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, he really discovered something that he really felt was the right fit for him. And so
the thing to do.
it's had a great outcome from that. So
Oh, that's great. And of course, one of the things you must do in your job is you must know about a lot of job opportunities. With a long time as an educator and guiding kids, because I know through my lifetime the people I've known who were good at this work are the ones who can come up with the strangest careers that you've never heard of. You know, like I remember hearing a story about a student who was just frustrated by everything but loved animals, and that person ended up becoming a farrier, which there's very few of and are well paid at this point.
absolutely, absolutely. Not a profession you hear a lot of students wanting to go into, but definitely one that we need.
Yeah, it was a hands-on person who didn't want to do the lab work to be a vet, you know, so yeah. And what do you say to parents who are dead set that their child is going to go to a four-year school and get that four-year degree, and it's very obvious that their child is going to be miserable or is going to waste their time and money and would be far better off with a technical school? There's such an intense focus these days on everybody must have a four-year degree. But what do you say to parents how to deal with that?
That's a great question, and I do end up working with families that are very divided in their perceptions of direction for the student. And so, we spend a lot of time talking about, what drew mom in this direction, what drew dad in this direction. We talk about family of influence, our first perceptions of work. And those are very enlightening conversations. We also talk about time frame, and time frame is one of the things that's measured through the Highlands Ability Battery. And that's your ability to see yourself sort of fulfilling those goals within a time frame. And some people are 6 months to 1 year. Great, that fits some professions very well. Some people are 1 to 5 years, and some are 5 to 10 years. And so when parents and student understand those time frames, perhaps of each other better, it also changes the dynamic. So those are difficult conversations to have, but very meaningful and usually with very positive outcomes.
Yeah, well, and that's probably true of many things, that people don't realize all the dynamics and all the things that go into it. And who knew you had to have family counseling to figure out what to do next? But I think that's probably the best thing that can happen for a lot of kids, and not to be so, put off about mom and dad aren't going to have anything to do with this, or mom and dad being helicopter parents, as they call them, and too controlling.
True.
So,
I think sometimes, too, students in particular feel very overwhelmed by that next step.
Yes.
And so by breaking it down and having a plan, it makes it much easier to sort of take those next steps.
Okay. Well, Marla, we're about out of time. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I know that people are going to be anxious to attend these programs, and you can find them on our website. Of course, they're from 6 to 7 on March 24th, April 28th, and May 19th. And so we'll see you next week on Information Please.